All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first Disconnected Office Hours. I am down in Mexico on vacation with my wife, Erica. Erica is in the shower getting ready to, I was going to say go out for dinner, but we're just getting room service for dinner because we're being really good about socially distancing. So I am recording an office hours with your professional development questions. So why not take career advice from someone sitting in Mexico drinking tequila? Cheers. So let's see what we got here. So first up, John Smith, who's obviously a pseudonym, asks, pseudonym the right word? I think so. How should someone who wants to build a consulting company up slowly while staying in their full-time job go about getting their first customers for something like a SQL Server health check or a performance tuning task? So the first thing you got to find out is your employer okay with you doing side work like moonlighting? You're going to want to talk to your manager, talk to your company's human resources department, and make it clear that you're only going to work for non-competitors, people who aren't in your same space. After you've cleared that out of the way, which is really kind of a whole separate discussion, the best advice I can give you is go start marketing yourself by doing presentations, blog posts, webcasts, anything that you can do to get your name out about what you do. And at the close of every session, say, if you need help with this, contact me, and put your contact info up on the slide. That's like the softest sales pitch imaginable. If you need help with this, contact me, because that way it isn't black and white that you're a consultant. You can answer emails for free if you want to. You can take, just do quick Zoom calls with people, or you can say, you know what you're asking for is really beyond what I can do quickly in the span of an hour or two. In order for me to help you, I'm going to need to work on a weekend day or a weeknight. It's going to cost you money because I am spending time away from my family. Here's what it would look like. Here's the cost. If you want to hire me, then that's fine. That also puts you in a little bit of a premium position because you already have a job. It makes it clear to the hiring person that you're not desperate, that you come at a little bit of a premium price because they are taking you away from your family, from your loved ones. So then you can say, look, I would be glad to help you on a weekend. I do have to charge X dollars an hour or X dollars per day to do it because I'm giving up time away from my family. But that's the way that you start building that up, is that getting your name out there softly, doing those kinds of marketing things. Next up, Crossroads. Crossroads says, I'm a production DBA with 2 years of experience. I'm in my early 40s. I love my job, but I'm worried about the future. What additional skills do you recommend to keep me future-proofing? So production DBA is kind of tricky. So with production DBA, you are doing patches, troubleshooting when the cluster goes down, doing backups, doing restores. Of all the database administration jobs out there that are slowly disappearing due to automation, that's the biggest one that's going to go first, the keeping the lights on type position. You easily, in your early 40s, you have another decade probably at least, like that you could continue to do it. Just as people are still doing COBOL today. I mean, people still do mainframe work. It's just that there are less of them. One of the interesting things about database administration, particularly production database administration, is that there's not a college degree for it. It's something that you kind of have to learn being on the job. So if you're a production DBA today, you're probably set for life if you have experience. You only say you have 2 years of experience, so it's kind of hit or miss. But you could stay there if you wanted to. If you were worried about evacuating out and finding another job, it's going to be challenging to find one that makes as much as production DBAs make. So if I was going to pick one thing, I would probably be you said to future-proof. If I was going to pick one thing, I would say specialize in whatever high availability and disaster recovery features your company is using. whether it's always on availability groups, failover clustered instances, log shipping, replication, anything like that. That'll buy you more runway time through the next decade. I don't think you have to worry in the next decade, but after the next decade you will. Next up, Michael says, asking for a friend, how might you go about illustrating your value as a DBA or the need of a DBA to the management team that does not understand the role and happily believes that if nothing is blowing up, then everything is okay, so why worry? Whatever causes you to lose sleep at night, put that in writing. So I've said to employers, okay, look, here's the deal. If we lost the SQL Server at 3 p.m. on a business day, we would lose this much data, we'd be down for this long. These are the things that give me heartburn. Our backups aren't encrypted. Anyone who gets a hold of the backups will. So I would put down in writing, these are the things that give me heartburn, and email your manager. Don't skip up. Don't email your manager's manager, just email your manager. And the goal of this email is to make it so that your manager can forward it up to. When you put down in writing the things that make you lose sleep, it will also, if you communicate that effectively, it'll cause the people above you to also lose sleep, and that will raise your value within the organization. That's one way, is the paranoia of what I would worry about. The other way is go talk to your managers about, hey, what do you want to do today with data that you can't do? So for example, I was at one company and we were talking about the licensing expenses of SQL Server, and we had a bunch of SQL servers, a big huge sprawl, and I said, okay, what if I tackle a consolidation project where I'll bite the bullet and do whatever work that it takes in order to get our licensing down by this much. I'll spearhead that project, and I'm going to kind of own it. And so then that way, at the end of a year, I was able to say, look, here's exactly how much I saved us on licensing. And so people then knew what my job was. Now, if all you're doing is keeping the lights on, if all you're doing is backups, patching, troubleshooting the cluster when it goes down, you actually may not have that much value in the future if your company decides to migrate up to the cloud. Today, if you only have 1 or 2 SQL servers, it's more effective to move to something like Azure SQL DB managed instances or Amazon RDS. It's more cost effective than hiring one DBA full time. On the flip side, if you've got dozens of SQL servers, go price out what it costs to move to Azure SQL DB managed instances or to Amazon RDS. And go to your manager, okay, look, just out of curiosity, you wanted to see what the cost would look like. Here's what it would cost to move to the cloud to get rid of my job, to work with platform as a service databases. And what you'll often find when you're in the dozens of SQL servers or SQL Server instances range is that the cost is heinous, is just horrific when you start to deal with those kinds of numbers, and that starts to demonstrate your value. I'm going to save you this much money by you not having to go to managed services up in the cloud. Why am I leaving the tequila sitting here and not enjoying it? Cheers. All right, let's see what we got next. Next up is Overworked DBA. Overworked DBA says, I'm a DBA with 20 plus years of experience, 14 of which are dedicated to full-time database development and management. I find myself being pigeonholed into a dead end of being the only DBA in a large company. Any advice on jumping ship to expand my horizons versus loyalty to a steady, if one-track position? So as I record this, it's still 2020. And 2020 hasn't been a great year for a lot of people. At any given time in your career, you have to gauge between how much risk you're willing to take on, how much uncomfortability. There's a quote, and I forget who originally said it, but everything that you want is on the other side of fear. So there's this balance of comfort versus fear. Is there a time where it makes sense? Is there a time when you have enough other comfortable things in your life that either you don't have enough, you don't have a lot of people depending on you, or you have a lot of money saved up where you can afford to take a risk? Or is right now a time where you should just be comfortable and take money off the table from an employer who values your contributions? If you're in a comfortable place where you could afford to take risks, then that's the time to jump. You know, when everything else in your life is comfortable and safe, that's the time where it's time to start thinking about taking risks in your career. If the other things in your life are not comfortable, if you have loved ones who have health issues, if you don't have 6 months worth of savings in the bank, if you have health issues yourself, then that's probably the time to not take risks in your career and to be comfortable and safe. Hope that makes sense there. And if it doesn't, who cares? It's a recorded thing. It is what it is. Next up, Coyote. Coyote says, I enjoy helping people, but I also want to grow my knowledge. Now it feels like there's little overlap. I'm either reverse engineering the optimizer in WinDBG, or else I'm teaching folks basic indexing. How do I stay motivated when the real world problems don't stretch me? Oh man. So think of the SQL Server community as like a pyramid, and really like any technical community, kind of like a pyramid. There are a whole lot of people at junior levels. There are less and less people at senior levels. You want, and I wanted originally, to build material for people who are at top ends of the pyramid. We want to build material for people that we respect and we are intrigued by. I would love to write a class that Paul White or Itzik Ben-Gan or Eric Darling would love to sit in. You know, like I would love to have Kendra Little in my audience and go, hot dog, I learned something. But the reality is there are so few people at the top of the pyramid. That's not where you make your money. Where you're going to make money is teaching people who haven't raised to the level in the pyramid where you're at. While that topic may not be challenging, I've given the same How to Think Like the Engine's presentation, I swear to God, at least 100 times. At least 100 times. Maybe even 500 times I've given How to Think Like the Engine. I can do it so easily now. I kid you not. I think about other things while I'm presenting it. I'm telling the story to clients or whatever, and I'm looking at my, when I'm presenting remotely, I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, am I on time? What am I going to eat for lunch today? You know, because I've given it so many times. It's not challenging. The material isn't challenging. How you bring it to life for those people at the bottom of the pyramid, that's the part that's challenging. How do you bring your life to it? How do you bring stories to it? How do you make it exciting for them? How do you teach them something interesting? The topic won't be hard for you, but communicating it clearly to those at the bottom of the pyramid will be. So hopefully that makes sense. You can always build material for folks at the top of the pyramid. You just won't make any money. I mean, there just aren't that many of them. And honestly, the people at the top of the pyramid don't pay a lot of money. I mean, say that you built a presentation that you would have in the audience, Kendra Little, me, Jen Stirrup, Paul Randall, Kimberly Tripp. Say that there's us sitting in the audience. How many people do you think are going to be in the audience who want to follow at that level? Like there are only so many Bob Wards who are going to sit in your session. There just aren't a lot of them. Next up, Frustrated DBA. Frustrated, aren't they all? Frustrated DBA says, I'm the most skilled at SQL in the team. And I'm the one tasked with all the DBA roles, etc., backup, security, etc. The CEO doesn't appreciate the importance and continually assigns other dev tasks as priority. How do I highlight the importance of the DBA role but still achieve requirements? Boy, this is going to be weird. Throughout your career, there are going to be things that need to be done that people don't appreciate. So right now, someone's cleaning the halls in your company, someone's cleaning the offices. Even if no one's there due to telecommuting, there's still someone pushing a cart around the offices, making sure that the physical offices and facilities are taken care of. There is a janitor, there is a plumber. Those tasks may not interest you, but someone has to do them. The reality is that these tasks just need to be done. If that work isn't what you want to do, isn't what your life feels like it's called to, what you do is lay out a job description. You go, here's everything that has to be done that I don't necessarily want to do. And you tell your manager, there are lots of things you could do with this. What I'm about to describe is just one way. I know I'm going to get flamed for this. Who cares? I'm the one drinking tequila in Mexico. I'm self-absorbed. You lay out the job description. You go to management. Here you go. I'm not doing this work anymore. If you want this work to be done, this is the job description. I'll help you hire for it. But I'm going to focus on these development tasks that people get excited about. Another way to do that is you take someone in your office who wants to get a better job. There's always a systems administrator, a developer, someone who wants to get into database administration because, let's face it, there's decent money in database administration, said the guy in Mexico drinking tequila at the Waldorf. There's decent money in it. So what you can do is say, I want to train so-and-so at this company to start doing these jobs and these tasks, and start segueing those responsibilities over to them so that you can get out of that work and get into the work that passionately calls to you. I've always done that to help me move on to the next phase in my career, is make a list of things that I don't love doing and mentor someone else to do them, especially someone who doesn't have as cool of a career and wants to make more money. That's wonderful. Next up, Al asks, who cuts your hair, man? You know, that's funny. So I'll talk to, so it's kind of, and I'm wearing a hat, of course, so I don't have a great, it says, who cuts your hair, man? One of the things that's weird about being on camera and doing things publicly is there's the never-ending imposter syndrome. There's the never-ending feeling that everyone's laughing at you and that the joke is on you and that everyone else is in on it. That never goes away. It doesn't matter how well you succeed. And I was just reading Eat a Peach by David Chang, a chef David Chang who started Momofuku restaurants. Brilliant. He's won the James Beard Award. I want to say twice. Amazing chef. He's had TV shows. He's been on Top Chef. I don't know that he's been a competitor, but he's been a judge. And I always was like, wow, this guy's just a culinary genius. Has Netflix shows. And I just read his new memoirs, Eat a Peach, and he talks about how he struggled with self-doubt all throughout his life. He always felt like he was going to be found out. And he never uses the words imposter syndrome, but it's common in tech, and it was clearly something that he was struggling with. So no matter what you do through your life, there are always going to be people who ask questions like, who cut your hair, man? Who cuts your hair, man? And you never know if they're your best friend or if they're laughing at you. Because I look at everyone who's been on the streams as like my best friend. Y'all are awesome. I get to share what I do. I'm absurdly lucky. I have so many laughs every time we do a live stream. y'all are, I mean, it's like having 200, 300 people on there with amazingly fast senses of humor. We have the same interests. It's just a ton of fun. And then you get questions like that, and you're like, I don't really know if they were laughing with me or laughing at me. And so it's just kind of fun how that works. When I lived in Chicago, there was a guy at Vidal Sassoon named Gary who cut my hair and was absolutely phenomenal. And ever since I moved out of Chicago, I've never bothered to find a good person to cut my hair. I've just gone to whatever place was cheap. There's a place in San Diego that I go where I know the owner, and so I keep going, and there's a different hair cutter there every time, and I don't care. I have the lowest standards. I'm like, I'm working from home. I don't care. I just, moose it all, yell it all straight up in the air. But it's funny that people would even ask that. All right, next up. Let's see. Ash asks, considering that Postgres is... hold on a second here. Make sure to click it. Considering that Postgres is now sophisticated enough for a vast array of business needs, and that SQL Server appears to be priced and aiming for the high-end market, do you think that admins and devs should be focusing more on Postgres? So if you stand next to something that's very expensive, you will make more money. A Ferrari mechanic, generally speaking, all things equal, a Ferrari mechanic will make more money than a Chevrolet mechanic, because the people who have Ferraris perceive a higher value in their mechanic's time than people who have Chevrolets. Companies who have SQL Server, generally, all other things equal, perceive a higher value in their database administrators than companies who downloaded a database for free. That's not to say that there aren't highly paid Postgres administrators. Absolutely are. That's not to say that there are there aren't low-paid SQL Server administrators. Absolutely there are. But if you just had to consider all things equal, I would say that's why SQL Server DBAs will make a good amount of money. So with what you should focus on in your career, if you're having a hard time getting a job right now, sure, I can see why you would consider switching platforms. I don't know a whole lot of people who are having a hard time getting a job as a SQL Server database administrator. And if you search for database rankings, and there's a site out there that does rankings across databases, go search for that and look at the scale, like the logarithmic scale, and note that it's logarithmic. And the databases that appear to be rising, that you hear so much about, Azure SQL DB, Cassandra, MongoDB, etc., look at where their scale is logarithmically as opposed to SQL Server, and you're fine. It's not like you should abandon ship. Having said that, if you're going to build a brand new application, if you're going to build a brand new app, so like Richie and I build stuff, I don't build it in SQL Server. SQL Server is expensive and Postgres is really good. So there's always that worry and concern that if, as a SQL Server person who's taking money off the table, it's a great place to take money off the table. But if you're doing brand new development, it's become harder and harder to argue for SQL Server if you don't need the enterprise-friendly features. Like SQL Server has all these auditing and compliance type features, easy high availability clustering, has a lot of features that enterprises really want that if you don't need, you'd be an idiot to pay for. All right, well, the sun is starting to drop down below my little balcony here, so I'm going to call this the first episode. But y'all had so many good questions that I am going to do another one of these first thing in the morning. Oh, a couple people have flagged questions as suspicious, so let's go ahead and get those approved. So I'll do another one of these tomorrow morning and post it up on YouTube. So in the meantime, cheers from Mexico. Damn, that's good.